I'm Jess.
And I'm Wes.
We are the Ontario Wildmen.
Wildmen.
On this show, we travel back and revisit significant moments, the heroes, the villains, the legends, and all things pro wrestling in Ontario. Wes, they must like us. We're back. Episode 3. What's going on, man?
Exciting times for sure, Jesse. It's another great program we've got planned here today, and we have done a pile of research. I know you have, and I have. I've got pages and pages and pages of notes and scribbles and undecipherable hieroglyphics to let our awesome fans know about all three of them. Yeah.
Well, hieroglyphics, eh? Well, I guess you'll have to call Brandon Fraser. Yeah, you've never seen The Mummy.
No.
Recap. Episode 2. We got a lot of good responses from that one, man.
And it's very exciting to know that people are listening. It's pretty damn exciting. It's crazy exciting. Just let me open up my screen here a little bit more somehow.
Technical difficulties with the man who hasn't opened up his Twitter.
All right, we're good. I can see you. That's all that matters.
No, I agree, man. I just want to thank everybody who listens to our show. We've had a lot of great feedback. I mean, we keep doing this and keep planning and researching, and we keep getting offered to keep going. So here we are.
We're looking for more interaction eventually with everyone, and we're working towards making it as friendly as possible so that we do interact with people. We want people to feel like they're part of the action and part of what we're talking about. We want to be not just 100% history. We want to be able to be more of everything for everybody, and I know you've got a lot to say about that. So, Again, thanks for everybody for piping in, chiming in, and as usual to Dave Dynasty for hosting us on his network.
I know sooner or later he's going to kick you off for all your stripper comments.
You know what? At one time it was a big deal, so it was.
I mean, it's still kind of a big deal. Speaking of a big deal,
yes.
We always said to the listeners that we wanted to compare the times, right? Use our age gap to our advantage. So I sent you a clip yesterday when I talked to you about the GCW event where Matt Cardona was bombarded with trash. And I think we should talk about that, man, because that actually happened in the 40s and the 50s.
You know what? It's entertainment, Jesse. And yes, maybe 25, 35 years ago and earlier it was more, people thought it was more of a physical exhibition, or people were physically trying to subdue their opponent. It's a work. We all know it. I don't care whether it is or not. It doesn't bother me a bit. If it's good, it's great. If it's not, it's not. You know, we've read stories, because you and I are both delving into the history. We've read stories about people throwing shit at the ring, people jumping in, people thinking that, whether they want a minute of fame or they're just that upset that they're going to take someone on. And, we understand the modern times of what it is now, the disbelief. There's no disbelief of suspension of belief anymore. It's just entertainment, right? And if you think that your ticket price allows you to bring stuff in your pockets or whatever, to whip stuff in the ring, I totally disagree with it, because what if you whip something across the ring and you take your daughter to a family-friendly show and she gets bonked on the head by a Coke bottle or a beer bottle or something? I know that's just way over the top, but it happened 40 years ago. It happened 50 years ago. It happened 100 years ago probably, and it's the nature of the entertainment. And
I've read a couple things about it now. Like, I've read some comments and stuff saying like, oh, well, it's COVID, and it wasn't COVID-19 in the 40s and 50s. But I'm like, hold on a sec. Matt Cardona and Nick Gage, these guys had a death match with glass tubes and tax and blood everywhere. So I think the COVID rules kind of go out the window for that.
For sure.
I understand your point. If I never really thought like, oh, if I took my daughter to a show and then something bombed her in the head, I'd be actually kind of pissed off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and times have changed because I read that it is a work and that the promotion did plant people in the crowd, but I've read that it wasn't a work and that it truly was real fans actually upset, which I understand. A hardcore, loyal deathmatch group of fans. They're not your local, they're your deathmatch fans, man. They want to see that violence.
But does it give them the right to throw stuff because maybe it didn't turn out the way they thought it should? If they know what a deathmatch is in 2021, they know what it's a work. Yeah, okay, glass tubes, everything, right? Throw it all in there. I don't care, anything. But everybody going now knows, and they go for their own specific reason, whether it's entertainment, whether it's to see their friend wrestle or their friend referee, or you want to interact with your friends there. Does it give you the right? I've never thrown anything in the ring. I think it's stupid, but I wasn't there. I can't.
Yeah. Hulk Hogan got trash thrown at him when he turned heel. You and I both know about Nanjo Singh in the 40s. Little bombs under the ring and stuff to smoke them out and stuff like that. I mean, Frank Tunney invented the ramp just to protect these guys, right?
Exactly. And we weren't there. I've heard stories of people throwing batteries off of the balconies towards the ring. You're never going to get it at the ring. They're just whipping stuff. And can you imagine 15,000 people in a big stadium or big arena throwing stuff from the balconies, like batteries or anything? Like someone's going to get hurt.
No, I agree.
Because you buy a ticket doesn't mean that you should be getting hurt unless you're an idiot and you walk up to the ring and someone takes offense to you being somewhere where you shouldn't be.
True. I guess see, you gotta compare, right? Because back then, it's all different now. I wanted to do something too. Remember how we talked about intertwining stuff? So like we talked about that today, and how we wanted to add more stuff and like be entertaining and like get the audience more involved in our show, right?
Yep.
Okay, so going forward, right, with the goals to be more entertaining as well as interactive with the audience, we're going to do a new weekly segment, which you and I have both discussed. And now we're announcing it to all the listeners that we are doing a brand new thing that we're going to do every month.
It's called Watch Jesse Pick His Nose.
I mean,
that's the wrong line.
Well, what you announce, what I do when you watch me on this podcast. Thanks for selling me out, bud. No, it's called What Are You Watching? So we really want to know what everybody out there that listens to our show is watching. Who do you idolize? Research. Kind of give us an idea of what everybody that listens to our show is watching and listening to, because we could see one of those guys and say, hey, he was huge in Ontario. We can cover some of our listeners' favorites in their careers in Ontario. But the main reason to do this show is that you and I aren't going to pick it. The people who listen to our show are going to be able to send in matches for you and I to watch.
That's going to be so much fun because we can't watch everything. And even me being in the VHS era, I didn't have tons of VHSs, but I couldn't watch everything. It was impossible because A, we didn't get it, and B, there was no cable, so that it was a different ball of wax, right? Let's just say in the last 6 months, I've been watching some UWF, a little bit of Florida, and I see some people have posted on Facebook on our pages about Gordon, who everyone needs some Gordon Soley once in a while, which is like 100%, right? If you tell them where they can get a hold of us, Jesse, at this present time, that would be awesome.
So it's going to be easy. Like Wes said, if we can watch everything we can. So to submit something, the easiest way is to direct message us on our Twitter or tag us on our Twitter at Wildmen Podcast. That's WILDMEN PODCAST at Wildmen Podcast. Or you can get in touch with us on our Facebook group, Ontario Wrestling Clippings of the Past. or the Wildman tribute page. Both those pages are tagged at the very top of our Twitter and remain there so everybody has easy access to do so. If you don't use Twitter, I am reachable on Facebook at Wrestle with JCal and on Instagram at Ontario Wildmen Jess. Like I said, if it can be watched, we'll do it. Right? Like I have the network, you have YouTube, like we both have YouTube. But I think it'll be fun to see what everybody's doing, and maybe we can actually help them see, hey, this is what they were doing in Ontario at this point in time.
Yeah, we know, Jesse, that there wasn't too many guys that have wrestled in North America for the last 60, 70 years that haven't appeared in Ontario. Very, very few. Like a very small percentage. So just say we have a listener in Florida that always liked that era and that style of Florida wrestling, which was pretty cool in the 50s and 60s. Lots of great matches and lots of great stars. They might have been a big fan of Eddie Graham or Mike Graham or someone like that. And I'm pretty sure that Eddie Graham wrestled in Ontario at one time under maybe even Eddie Gossett, right? And so we could do some research on that, and just in that kind of case, right? Because there was a lot of guys that people just don't know about Ontario or that they did work here.
Yeah, I'm actually disappointed that Brody only worked here once. I really think he could have made a lot of money here, man.
It was 100% one-off. One of those guys who just happened to be flying on the plane with a bunch of other guys, and they were coming back from Japan. And the people who were lucky enough to see him, I liked them. I thought the matches I've seen of them were pretty good. Some of them were, like against Abdullah, they were awful, but he could really work against some of the more of a technical wrestler too, right?
Yeah. So speaking of what are you watching, this new segment, we're going to do, like I said, we're going to do 3 matches each month. You watch one, I watch one, and then we'll watch one together.
Yep.
Right? So I think it'll be cool. This month, though, we only did 2. I told you to watch something, and you told me to watch something. So, Wes, what did you watch?
I watched the Kevin Owens.
Nope. No. I sent you Kenny Omega versus Ray
Kenny Omega. Sorry, yeah. K-O.
Oh my God, this guy.
And that's something I don't have that written down, but yeah, it was. I really enjoyed it. It was 2 fast, quick, athletic guys doing some. It was the highlights only. Now that was it, but the highlights I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. Athleticism was up the top shelf, and to see the guys really put an effort in to entertain the crowd. Little tiny bit flippy floppy for me, but on the same note, massive moves. A whole pile of moves I've never seen before, which was always nice, right?
Yeah, I sent you that because that was the match that really was like, okay, I'm on the Kenny Omega wagon now on the AEW train. And I was like, if we're gonna get submissions, I would rather you watch the modern wrestling stuff and I watch the classic stuff, and then we can kind of compare.
I agree.
Speaking of compare, you told me to watch Bobby Heenan versus Cowboy Bob Ellis. Now I was like, what the hell is this guy doing to me? I never, but I did watch it, and I remember what you said to me. You're like, watch how Heenan sells, and like the eye rakes, and like, oh, he like fakes an injury and then comes back with a cheap shot. And the one thing I always noticed about wrestling fans is back then you can hear the noise.
Definitely.
You can definitely hear the audience, and like they sell the punches, right? They get hit, and Heenan's like flopping his hands in his back and waving for dear life before he falls and hits the mat.
and especially in some of the promotions, like the WWA, which that was, whether that was taped in Indianapolis or Chicago or whatever, you could hear the heat with the fans.
Mm-hmm.
The building, you could feel it, and maybe all the fans in that arena couldn't hear what he was saying because maybe it wasn't on the loudspeaker, but it was just on for television. But still, they're selling it so much, and they're just trying to prove a point, which is basically what all these guys are trying to do. In the Kenny Omega match, they're trying to prove a point, saying we're two tough guys and we're gonna wrestle it out here. And like I said, I saw so many things there that I had never seen before. So it was good to watch. It was good to see. So happy that you sent me that and I was able to view it. With the Heenan and Ellis, like I said, completely different era, but on the same note, you can still see the guys are selling. They're proving their point. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And those two guys, they both those matches, decades apart, but still prove the fact that it's entertainment for the fans.
Yeah, and with the Ray Phoenix and Kenny Omega thing, I have to ask you, like, do you think size really matters in wrestling anymore? Is it all just, or should it just be based on athletic ability? Like, what? Because back then, you got to think when Vince McMahon took over, it was, oh, to work in New York, you need to be huge.
Yeah,
You need to be big muscle guys, right?
Yeah, to be a main eventer, to go against one of the champs, you had to be like some sort of a 6'4", 6'5", at least 280 or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some live matches recently in the last few years where I thought the guys were too small. They shouldn't have been in there, no bigger than you, but they're chosen a profession. They're working, whether they're getting paid or whether they're making money at it. That's not me. I'm going there to be entertained. So these two guys, although they were, I don't know, what are these guys? These guys look like they're about 210, 220 at the most, maybe not even 6 foot, right?
Cruiserweights back in the 90s.
Yeah. So they did what they were supposed to do. And I pay my ticket to be entertained now. I don't go to be seen. I don't go to see a famous person anymore. Although I shouldn't lie, I went and seen Josh Alexander just to see him, right? So
Yeah.
I guess it's true that if the person entertains you enough, you're going to go see them, whether they're 190 or 170. It's not what I think is professional wrestling in my standard of what I grew up with, but it is now. So
Come on, man.
I can handle it.
Man, the Sheik went until he was like 85.
He did. And you know, he was billed as like 242 and 6'1", and the guy was like 5'10", 220, and he was so out of shape, and he didn't do anything athletic at all except hit people with a pencil, right?
Yeah. We did watch the same match. However, we're not going to talk about it because we're going to talk about it today on our brand new episode 3.
Yes.
We're going back to 1986, Wes. How old were you in 86?
I was 28.
28?
29? 27. 27. Just turned 27 that summer.
What are you, a woman? Cutting your age down, bud? Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
No, it's cool to see like how old you were when things were actually going on, because 1986 across the globe was a big year. Listen to this. I got some facts for you. So I don't know if you listen to Metallica, but They released Master of Puppets in 1986. Now, some say that that's their greatest album. However,
I did check and see that was one of the biggest selling albums of the year.
Yeah, it's not my favorite Metallica album. I like Ride the Lightning better, but whatever. Your favorite album of all time, Madonna, released True Blue. It was the album of the year in 86. Your little roller rink album, buddy, or what?
No, I was listening to Peter Gabriel and the Pet Shop Boys, who put out albums that year.
Oh my God! I always put you for a Devo fan.
I know all the hits of Devo. I do, and we could talk about Devo some other time. Also, one of my favorite bands, the Smiths, they released The Queen Is Dead, which was a great album for all the people who like the whiny Morrissey.
But yeah, I've never even heard of them.
That's okay. You're cool. One of the things, we were talking about this yesterday, and you were talking about some of the sports events, and I thought, you know what? Some reason 86 hits me for some reason. So I looked it up. Major League Baseball World Series, Mets and Bo Sox. And anyone who was watching sports at that time would have remembered that World Series from the famous Bill Buckner error at first base when they should have won, and he blew it, and the Mets came back and won. So that was pretty cool. Bill Buckner, and you can look it up on YouTube. Bill Buckner, error at first base.
There you go. That's for Davin Christensen, who's a Mets fan.
Yep.
Speaking of sports, Boston Celtics won the NBA title. Larry Bird was the playoff MVP. This is something you probably remember. The Montreal Canadiens actually won the Stanley Cup in 1986. But I think...
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think it's more famous for the $1 million in damage that the fans caused after they rioted when they won.
Yeah, we don't say that name of that hockey team.
Oh, no. You're a Leafs fan?
It was my 10th month anniversary that summer when that show was on. And I got a really good one for you. Guess how much the mortgage interest rates were?
What?
13.9%.
And what are they now?
4 and 5.
Oh, Jesus.
I had a $40,000 mortgage. I never thought I'd ever pay it off.
And now you need $40,000
down.
Just to put down. Not even. You need $80,000 to put down without even getting penalty.
Yeah.
The biggest movie in '86 was Top Gun. I've never seen it.
I went to the theaters and saw it, probably to take my wife to see Tom Jones.
Tom Jones.
Tom Jones. Oh, I hate him so much. Oh, he's so terrible.
Tom Cruise?
He's so fake. Oh my God.
Come on, man. What's that? He was Steve in The Outsiders, wasn't he?
He was, and that great book. Yeah, fantastic book. Movie, and not so much.
Well, there's only one thing we want to talk about today, and that's Big Event in 1986. Hulk Hogan versus Paul Orndorff at the Exhibition Stadium. Wes, you want to give a little bit of a rundown of what the CNE really means to the people of Ontario? Because it's really a big summer attraction here.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest attraction in right across Canada yearly. It's about 140 years old. It's been going on for the longest time. 6th biggest annual fair agriculture show in North America. It's usually the last 2.5 weeks of August before Labor Day, which is celebrated both in Canada and the U.S., so everyone will know what that is. Jesse, I don't know if this happened when you were going to school, but when we were in school, when we got our report card every year, we got a free pass to the CNE.
Yeah, I do remember that in the 90s.
It was a big deal. It was a massive deal, because if you didn't get one, it sucked. But that was such a big deal to get that pass, even though, we all knew how, at the time, we all knew how to get into the CNE for free. But it didn't cost very much. I mean, it was well worth the value. You could spend the whole day there walking around, visiting and meeting people and seeing old friends and stuff. Usually about 1.5 million visitors for those couple of weeks. It was just, depending on the weather, it was a great show. If the weather was shit, it really held back the audience for sure.
Yeah, and the buildings were so much fun, man. I used to love going to the buildings. And, the food building, too. What was your favorite food there? Do you remember? Anything that, just rocked your world?
Probably just eating, gobs and gobs and gobs of cotton candy. I love cotton candy.
Oh, sweet tooth, eh?
Yeah. One of the famous buildings that used to be there when I was a kid was the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame. And it was where they had all the NHL trophies on display. So any young kid going to the CNE in the 60s, 70s, probably even the 80s, would have went there to see the Stanley Cup, of course. It was such a big deal. We always went, even though we knew what it looked like and everything. You had to get in that building to check out the Stanley Cup. And in conjunction with the Sports Hall of Fame, wrestling was portrayed there years and years and years, both by guys from Dewey's gym and from Ron Hutchinson's promotion also. So pro wrestling does have a tie there.
That's actually my favorite memory, is watching the wrestling in the sports building as a kid. I remember being there with my dad. He let us sit there and watch it. And he's like, I said, we just caught the end of the show. I said, can we just wait? I want to see the whole show. And I got to see the whole thing. And I met a wrestler. I wish I had the photo. I think one of my sisters has the photo. So if you two are listening, give it friggin' back. I want it. But it turns out years later that I found out that I was watching Ron Hutchison's promotion, and I sent him and I talked to him about it, and just like I seen his promotion at the Heavy TO Festival. It's kind of funny that I watched 2 of his shows and I didn't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that rocked my world there, deep fried Mars bar.
Okay.
Okay, buddy, get on board with that. I'm telling you.
I think I had one once, and then I probably had half a pint of vodka, and then probably got on some spinny rides and barfed.
That's so funny, bro. So you see, for everyone listening, for Hulk Hogan to come to the CNE, it would be a massive deal for people in Ontario.
We didn't realize at the time, and I don't think Jack or Vince realized what it was like. Jack and Frank had put on shows at the exhibition earlier, but they didn't have that massive WWF publicity machine behind them. The Toronto fans supported the 2 big cards there, which were called the Night of Champions and Night of Champions 2. Great card, great famous wrestlers on the cards, but nothing like this at all. Nothing. And if Frank had come back and said to Jack, "What the hell are you doing? Why are we renting the CNE out for like 10,000 people? But we could have done the Gardens, although the Gardens was under construction or something at the time. That's why they did it." To see what happened here was bizarre. I don't think they ever even realized it was going to be anything like that. The promoters, and it wasn't just Vince, it was CPI, who was Concert Productions International, and the CNE board members. They were all in conjunction with this. So it was such a big deal.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about it all right when we come back.
Hey guys, thank you for joining us and listening to the Dave Dynasty Show. Before we get started today, make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Dave Dynasty. You can also find us on Twitter at twitter.com/The Dave Dynasty, or if you're on there, just do @The Dave Dynasty. Of course, subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/The Dave Dynasty. Subscribe to the podcast on all podcast platforms. Just look up Dave Dynasty Show and you will find the feed for all of the Dynasty Wrestling Podcast Network episodes. If you'd like to contribute to the show, you can do that by going to PROWRESTLINGTEES.com/The Dave Dynasty and buying a shirt. That helps us out. Or if you would just like to make a contribution, go to paypal.me/The Dave Dynasty. Anything helps. It all goes back into the show, keeps it free for you. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe and review and share. Now, let's get into the show.
Plus, let me set the scene a little bit here for everyone listening, just to kind of put in perspective of what was going on when Hulkamania ran wild on Toronto in 1986. On June 21st, 1961, Pat O'Connor dropped the title to Buddy Rogers in front of 38,622 fans. Now that's huge for the 60s, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's a pretty significant title change.
That was a big significant title change. The NWA title at the time was the foremost title known worldwide, even in 1961. These guys were defending the belts in Japan, in some parts of Europe, Australia, all over North America. So it was a big deal, and 2, rightly ridiculously famous names in O'Connor and Rogers. Rogers, of course, one of the greatest of all times.
And Pat O'Connor, one of the biggest names of the 60s, in my opinion.
Yep.
But I want listeners to, the key thing there was 38,622 fans. So let's fast forward, Wes, to 1980. The showdown at Shea. Now, I'm referring to Shea Stadium in New York. I saw on YouTube it was Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant was there.
Yep. It was basically he had just sort of started working there more and more, come down from Montreal with a bunch of the Montreal guys. And it was obviously a big deal, but it was overshadowed by the main event, which was a fantastic match between two baby faces, Pedro Morales and Bruno Sammartino. But not to take away the
yeah.
Hulk Andre.
When did you first hear of Hulk Hogan and Andre? Like, were they big in the bulletins back in the 80s?
Of course, they both were. Hogan not as much because Andre had already been working in Canada and part of the States from let's say 1970, 71.
Yeah.
Hogan not as much. I remember I found out about Hogan on the sheets for sure, but I knew about Andre because we saw him on TV here in Toronto all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So he was constantly on TV, not constantly on TV, but we probably saw Andre 6, 7, maybe 10 times a year on TV. Either it was the Toronto TV or the Montreal TV that we were able to get.
Yeah. So at that show, though, I've read that they put 52,000 fans, but they hyped it up and only had 36,000.
Yeah, I think there was a weather issue too.
Yeah. So let's just say 36,000 because that was multiple reports I saw on that.
Yeah.
So in 1961, 38,000, still winning, okay? In 1982, Wes's favorite movie of all time, Rocky III, comes out. And this is also your favorite version of the Hulkster.
It is.
I'm so mad at you for that.
He was doing a really fantastic job at portraying a wrestler.
It's all fake, meatball. It's all fake.
I could watch that match over and over and over. I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. They did such a good job of portraying the pissed off wrestler going against the mark. Rocky it's a movie, but anyways, it was good. I enjoyed it. Since Stallone has an awesome tie to wrestling because he's done a couple of wrestling movies, and he loves getting his picture taken, or has in the past, with all sorts of wrestlers. Right? He does have a tie.
Mr. T was the bad guy in that movie.
Yeah. Yep.
I'll go pity you. I'll go get you.
Clubber Lang, right?
Yeah. Let's fast forward to 84.
Okay.
Now, Wes? 1984, Hulk Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik for the WWF title, which changed almost everything.
It did, without a doubt. It solidified Vince's hold on what he wanted to do, whether it was in his mind or whether it was to follow. It started the new echelon of the way we see wrestling today, without a doubt.
So when were the smart fans known of what Vince was trying to do? Because putting the belt on Hogan was the major point of that.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'm not going to say I was at the time a tiny bit smarter than some, but not anywhere near like some of the people in Ontario who were buying all the sheets that were available, whether it was Wrestling Wire or the Bob Clausen's mat results out of Pennsylvania, and even Meltzer was putting out bulletins then. Different mindset altogether, because it was so exciting to read that the two guys you had just left your territory were the new tag team champions in Oklahoma or Kansas City or something, and that's what people who liked following that, which I did, loved seeing that stuff. Right? I wasn't, Jesse. I guess you could say that we got the WWF show in Ontario back in the day, and the TV matches were boring. I thought it was all big man, little man. It was always a big bad guy or a big face against little guys. Matches were boring. Matches were dull. They weren't exciting. And sometimes if you watch some of the YouTube videos of some of the even WWF matches from the 80s, they pale in comparison to some of the action that was actually going on somewhere else. They worked it into a way so that it was an idea, I guess, what Vince really wanted to do, and he understood the superstar atmosphere, or what Hogan had, and he did. He exploited it 1,000,000%, and good for him, because I'm all for businessmen making money.
Yeah, no, that's fair, and you know what? Good for him because without him, I wouldn't be a wrestling fan, and a lot of people could say the same.
Oh, it wouldn't be the same. It could even be dead, Jesse. It could even be dead, completely dead. Anything big could be dead. It could all be just like the shows that I've been going to over the last couple of years, where there's not even 100 people there.
Yeah. Let's WrestleMania 2, April 7th, 1986. It was in three cities, New York, LA, and Chicago. The main attraction, Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy in a steel cage match. Wes, were you still watching wrestling at this time? Did you watch WrestleMania or anything?
I think I watched. I think I watched this one. I know I watched. I went to a bar a few times to watch the Survivor Series, but I don't know when they started. I can't remember. Um, this WrestleMania 2. I'm pretty sure I watched it on live somewhere on someone at someone's house. Yeah, on
Mm-hmm.
pay-per-view.
Because this, like, I mean, come on, 86. We're at the height of WrestleMania. The absolute top of the mountain, I think, at Hulkamania. I mean, we're right. So, like, I want to remind everybody right now that's listening, there is no Survivor Series. There's no SummerSlam. The NWA is still alive and battling with Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes. I mean, a good point of that is to even talk about in February. Was it February of '86 that Mania 1 happened? You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like, so again, the NWA still coming to Ontario. But then we get to August 28th, 1986, and the CNE does a massive week of events. Do you remember anything about that? Like all that stuff going on in the city?
It was really exciting to be, even just to be a wrestling fan. It was the talk of the town, even if you're remotely a wrestling fan. Yes, we weren't NWA anymore. Frank was gone. Life was changing. Everything was changing. Um, this event changed, I think, the public's perception, especially in Toronto, of and the mainstream media in Toronto also, because of the events that led up to this, and that Hulkamania was running wild because it was so electric. They could have. It was just so exciting, so electric that full page spreads in the Toronto Sun every day for the week leading up to it. Massive publicity, massive radio, TV, and print ads in the newspapers. And the newspapers, they knew it was selling, so why not put a wrestler on the front page, which they'd never done before, ever.
Yeah. And I mean, like, we're talking Van Halen, Elton John, monster trucks. I think on our Twitter and Facebook pages, I posted that clipping of the monster trucks and stuff for that week.
Yeah.
All right. So, but they decide to close the event with Hulk Hogan and Paul Orndorff. Like, would you say that Hulk Hogan is the biggest star in the world at this point, August 28th, 1986? And I'm
Without
talking worldwide.
without a doubt. That's why I said the Toronto newspapers never put a wrestler on the front page. Maybe in the tabloid newspapers they put a wrestler on the front page of the sports section, but never on the front page. And these guys were making either appearances on the front page or on the second page of the newspaper, especially the Toronto Sun, which was doing massive color pictures at the time, right? That who couldn't help but see it, proving the fact why they sold so many tickets.
What is it? I read 74,000 people.
I
However, I've also seen 68,000.
Yeah, and I heard 64.5. I've heard 65, and it was a big deal. I don't know why I never went. I think it's because I had gone to some concerts already at the CNE, and maybe my big entertainment money was tapped out. Although it wasn't really big money. It was only $20 for ringside, and I think the cheapest seat in the house was $5. So
Really?
it wasn't.
$20 for ringside.
Yeah, that would be about $50 now in today's dollars, and I think the $5 for the nosebleeds or whatever considered nosebleeds at that stadium is about $12 now. I've done some figures about the event, and it wasn't a standalone WWF event, and that was, I think, the biggest thing that I found when I was doing some research on this, that it was in cooperation with CPI, which was a concert promoter, and the CNE, who part of the CNE was tied in with Maple Leaf Gardens because Ballard owned the Maple Leaf Gardens and the Leafs, and Harold Ballard and his son Bill Ballard owned part of CPI and was on the board, I think, of CNE also. So I think after this event, and we haven't talked about this yet, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead too far, but they didn't do a pay-per-view on this. And
No.
I don't know why, but I imagine because at the time Vince was thinking only about VHS sales. So I'm guessing that because they knew they had to split the money, Vince could care less because he was getting all the merch and he was getting all the VHS sales, and this sold a ton of VHS around the world.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that with that big of a number, 64, 68, 74, whatever, the point is it doubled what O'Connor and Buddy Rogers did in 61.
For sure.
This is a huge, huge show. They don't do a pay-per-view for this event. And it's just, you got to wonder, like, did Jack Tunney do this to help himself escalate within the WWF, like, political tower? Because you got to think, 1986, I'm going to be straight up. There's no competition. Vince won, eh? Like, he took over. No one can compete with the production value. It's just slowly going towards him. I mean, after this event, we're going to talk about what comes next, which I'm sure everybody knows is Hogan Andre at WrestleMania 3. But you got to wonder, like, did Jack really just pull this off to become that on-screen character he always wanted to be?
I think he may have been a bit of a figurehead still at this time, but they anything to do with the Tunnies was minor here, very minor. Jack and Eddie probably had something to do with it, but not too much. Maybe they might have arranged the referees and stuff, but this was all, CPI was a concert. They were concert people. This is basically a concert, except the problem with this event that I thought of way after the fact, and especially after watching the video of the main event, was that at a concert, at those worst $5 ticket, you could still hear the music. Basically, they lived where those seats were where you live, and then you were trying to see the ring, which wasn't raised. It was just a regular ring in the middle of the field. 20,000 people on the floor, all standing, trying to watch something. The people that were in the back would have seen little tiny little wrestlers in the ring.
Is this the event that gained the nickname The Mistake by the Lake? Because I think it's like, I don't know anything about that, but I've always heard that the exhibition stadium was always referred to by the Torontonians as the Mistake by the Lake.
The problem with the Mistake by the Lake was that at one time this stadium was only for basically football and track and field events and concerts. That was it. There was no there was the big grandstand on the one side and the small bleachers. They were big bleachers on the other side before the baseball stadium came along.
So this is before the Skydome then?
Oh yeah, way before the Skydome was even dreamt of. And the Jays were playing there, but the Mistake by the Lake was so called because, I think anyways, it was because too much weather, because it was right by the lake. I went to a football game there when I was a kid, and it was so cold. Oh my God. And it was terrible because the grandstand was so old. It was terrible, washroom facilities, et cetera, et cetera. I did see some concerts there. Talking about concerts, I have it here somewhere. I saw the Clash there in 1982, and I saw Rush and Max Webster there in 78, and I also saw the Police Picnic there in 1983, which was pretty cool.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
I've never been to Exhibition Stadium, obviously.
But the Mistake by the Lake was pretty much, I think, based on weather and older facilities.
It's just crazy that they would host a WWF event there with that many people, not have a pay-per-view, overdub the commentary and all that later.
Definitely.
And just boost VHS sales, which I guess was huge because, I mean, with tape trading, you know what I mean?
I remember being in the video stores and seeing it everywhere. I probably rented it like 10 times. So, Vince made a buck off me every time I rented it. I think that was the whole push. They weren't sure about outside of the United States. They weren't sure what was going to happen based on the Night of Champions that had happened a few years prior. And then when you can't set up a pay-per-view at the last minute when you find out there's going to be 64,000 people there. So Vince's production team would have been right front and center with that. And that's one of the problems also was there was so many seats sold that were in the way of camera stands and cameras and production stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, hey, you never know, man. Vince is wild. He'll do anything. I think it's important too to note that even though that we're in the height of WrestleMania and like Hulk Hogan's the biggest star in the world, he's come to Toronto August 28th, 1986. I think it's important to focus too on his opponent, Paul Orndorff.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Paul Orndorff has just recently passed away.
Hope this is not a curse.
Yeah, I know. What the heck, man?
Poor Genie last week or last month.
Yeah, Super Genie last month. Now Paul Orndorff this month. But I think it's important to remind everybody that's listening that Paul Orndorff aligned himself with Bobby Heenan, and in the 80s, you just don't want to do that unless you're a heel.
Exactly. He did such. And prior to talking about what are you watching now, Heenan was so good, and unfortunately, so many people missed him either in the AWA or when he was with the WWA before he got to the Fred. He was in my eyes, he was the show. He was so talented, so great, and Orndorff with him, they matched perfectly. Not that Orndorff couldn't give an interview. I thought he could, but he's as gruff and as rough looking as he was, and he sounded like that on interviews. Heenan, you still needed that mouthpiece, right?
Yeah, and not to mention Paul Orndorff was huge.
Oh, physical stature was so incredible, right? His jaw was so strong, and his just his physicality was really complete differently musculature from Hogan, but I really liked him. I liked him, and he couldn't do no wrong in my books wherever he worked.
No, and he was huge in WCW. Not to mention the fact that he was in WrestleMania 1, that main event for the first ever one against Hulk Hogan.
That's right.
Yeah, but although everything was good in Toronto and we're at the height of WrestleMania, things weren't too good with the tickets. But we're going to talk about that when we come back.
Grand River Tea is proud to be sponsoring the Ontario Wildmen Wrestling Podcast, produced by Dave Dynasty Podcast Network with Wes and Jess, providing the Ontario wrestling historical content. Grand River Tea is providing their tea of choice, Dropkick Yopon. An ancient plant grown wild in the southern United States, Yopon is the only caffeinated plant native to North America. It has been used by Native Americans and early settlers in North America for decades. It's organic, sustainably wild, harvested, and hand-picked, and is only touched while growing by sunshine and rain. Dropkick Yopon is a medium roast tea that has amazing aroma of maple and a beautiful golden color when brewed either cold or hot. Here at Grand River Tea, we take our sourcing seriously, and we want to reduce our carbon footprint and make our teas as sustainable as possible. All our loose leaf teas are gluten-free, vegan, dairy-free, and have no sugar. So put your kettle on and enjoy some Grand River Tea.
Although things were absolutely fantastic for the city of Toronto, the atmosphere was bopping with positivity. The big event caused quite an issue for wrestling fans who attended. Wes, talk to me, buddy. What the hell happened with the tickets?
Every party that was involved blamed the other ones. Of course, WWF had nothing to do with the actual selling of the seats. They did have something to do with like the production cameras and the stands for the cameras and things being in spots where there should have been tickets. But when you're expecting maybe 30 grand and it doubles, it was massive PO, massive. There was, a lot of people went with their kids, and understandable. If I had spent $20 on ringside and paid for my two kids to watch, and you couldn't see anything because 20,000 people were on the floor watching, standing up, or on the chairs, or whatever. And it was a bit of a fiasco that way. I've read a lot of bad remarks about it, but it was people who maybe they were used to going to arena show. Maybe they were used to sitting 8 rows back. Could be a million reasons. Also, like we talked about in the last segment, if you had the unfortunate pleasure of sitting in the last corner seat of the C&E North Grandstand, you were a million miles away.
Yeah, it's important to point. I guess it's important to put into perspective. Arenas weren't what they are now, where you can sit anywhere and anywhere's a good seat, right? I mean, even in the Sky Dome now, I find that if you sit in the 500s, it sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, I paid $120 to sit in the 500s to see Guns N' Roses at the Sky Dome, but whatever. What else am I going to do that?
But on the same note, like I said earlier, a concert is different because you could not see anything, but you can still hear the music.
That's right.
This being not a standalone event with just WWF, and we know what they're like. When they put something on, it's 100% class all the way, right to the smallest details. This was left to, and I guess it's because of the time frame. It was that long ago. It was left to three not competing companies, but 3 different companies trying to work together. The best available seating, whatever it's called, BASS. I mean, they blew it. I mean, they sold way too many tickets. And I think you said you have some facts about people who.
Yeah. So on the last couple episodes ago, Eric Bischoff on his podcast, 83 Weeks with Conrad Thompson, they talked about Paul Orndorff, and they talked about the big event. And I got a quote here. It says 61,000 fans were paying customers.
Yeah.
So you got to think. So 61,000 people paid to see this show.
And I look at, I just estimated the gross at about $400K because it was reported that the C&E made $100,000 on this show, just this show.
Yeah. Also on their podcast, Eric Bischoff and Conrad, they said that it was $1 million house.
I'm with VHS sales and merch. I'm just figuring in on tickets. That's all I'm figuring in.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I can see that 100%. That's a massive gross show.
But with those with the numbers you and I have, would you consider that this event, not being a pay-per-view, a successful event business wise?
No.
Why?
No, but yes. No, because one person didn't get the whole pie. I think this event probably turned a switch in Vince's brain, said, I'm getting all of it. I'm going to do everything from now on. I'm getting all the money. I'm not splitting with anybody. He didn't care when he rolled over the territories at all. I mean, he was buying people's TV out from underneath him. He'd do anything to get into St. Louis or to Omaha or Nebraska or whatever. I can just see this flicked a switch somewhere, and he went like, "Screw this! Why would I want to make? Why would I want a gross of $1 million on a show and get 33%?" And I'm sure that was one of the impetus for him to completely walk away from anybody else doing anything and having complete control A to Z on every show.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that Hulk Hogan, his prized possession, was headlining the show, and back in '86, at the height of Hulkamania, brother, he's got to take his cut of the money because he ain't showing up for free.
Well, and that's fine. I mean, they're the people who are doing the entertainment. They have to get paid, and I get that, no problems. But it's usually the promoters who sink or swim. And that's why Tunney didn't do very well at the CNE a couple of years before, because there was no massive publicity machine in front of them. I seriously think that this turned a switch on in Vince's head.
Do you think that the ticket controversy would have got more light nowadays with social media?
100%. 100%. There would have been, what's it called? What's that
Trending?
called? No, when people do a lawsuit. Group action, or what's it called?
Oh, group action lawsuit or something like that?
Yeah. It would have been it could have even rioted. There could have been more problems.
Well, speaking of the court, okay, so I was on slamwrestling.net, and I got an article here by Greg Oliver, and I'm going to quote this. It says, refunds were offered to 219 people from outside Southern Ontario, and 1,609 people in the GTA were offered tickets to an event in 1987 at the CNE that never really happened. So, come on, bro. Like,
what was that?
219 people got a refund out of 64,000 or 61,000 paying. You can't say it's not a successful show after that.
I wish I had some of my stuff, which is still packed. I'm not moved yet. I think, now I'm thinking about it seriously, Jesse, I think Meltzer went berserk. I think he did. If we could pull up the week after this event on his sheet, I bet any money he went ape shit because of the overselling and the negative aspect of the tickets. Nothing else, of course, because it was a great show as far as fans were concerned, unless you were sitting in Oshawa trying to watch.
Yeah, well, apparently that's how it felt like, because half the people couldn't even see. But like what you said, they were $20 for ringside, $5 for the bleachers. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the GO train was kind of cheap back then. It's not like it's going to cost so much to get there now.
No, and if you bought the ticket, you would have got into the CNE for free for the day. So the CNE probably made an extra $100,000. Excuse me, $100,000 just that day.
Yeah, not to mention the games and the tickets.
More people spending money, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, I just can't believe that this huge event. I feel like almost like it is the Montreal Canadiens in 1986. You know what I mean? Like there's all this damage. There's all this damage on this event. But honestly, I think that it's such a significant part of the event because there was such a mess up with tickets, and I can only imagine that many people surrounding a building, man. It'd be like a Jays game. It's nuts.
Yeah, it'd be worse than a Jays game because of all the people standing, the 10 or 20,000 people that were standing. Jesse, you got to remember, like I said, you watched the main event. I know you watched it recently. I did too.
Yeah.
And it was packed. It was absolutely packed. Not like a enclosed arena show or a stadium show where they would have had parts of what they do now, like parts of it were closed off or a big black curtain across or something like that. This was just selling every ticket that was possible plus another 20,000. So it was when you decided to talk about this and we were running through it, I was like, you know what, this is a big deal. And I didn't realize, the more I talk about it, the more I realized what a big deal it was. I think it changed. One of the reasons why it changed professional wrestling, because I think Vince realized that he wanted more of the pie and all the pie that he should be getting.
Greedy bastard. Anyways, let's take our last commercial break. When we come back, we're running down the card, top to bottom, winners, losers. And Wes, you have a lot of good facts, and I can't wait to get into it. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, support all the podcasts here on the Dynasty Wrestling Podcast Network by visiting us on Pro Wrestling Tees. All you have to do is go to PROWRESTLINGTEES.com/TheDaveDynasty. Once you're there, you can find shirts for all of your favorite shows here on the podcast network. We have the original Dave Dynasty Show logo shirt, the Ring-a-Ding-Dong Dandy shirt, a special upcoming Ontario Wildmen shirt, and then there's other favorites that we have on there, the Dr. Jerry Graham Jr. official shirt, the Midwest Express shirt, and of course our bestseller, one of the most popular shirts we offer, the Bruiser Buddy shirt. We know you love Dick the Bruiser if you love the Dave Dynasty Show, so go get yourself a Bruiser Buddy shirt. And while you're there, get you a shirt for all of the Dave Dynasty Show podcast network shows. They're all there. Visit it now, PROWRESTLINGTEES.com/The Dave Dynasty.
Wes, we've talked about where we are in Hulkamania. We've talked about the ticket controversy. We talked about the impact of what this event and what the Canadian National Exhibition truly means to Ontario and how everything affected Ontario and the wrestling fans. But now it's time to run down the card, buddy.
Such a great card. I've got 30 guys on the card. And interesting enough, at this time, because of Vince raiding the territories, we had 6 people on this card who were world champions either in the WWF or NWA. We got Dory Funk Jr., who, of course, was one of the greatest NWA fans, 69 to 71. We got Randy Savage, of course, who was he was the Macho Man.
He's the Macho Man.
Ricky Steamboat, who held the NWA title for a little while, one of my favorites. You know what? I just like him. I'm looking at this list and I'm going, okay, Dory, Randy, Ricky, Harley, Pedro, Hulk. Of all those 6, Rick Steamboat was my favorite. But anyways.
And he was a huge name in Maple Leaf Wrestling.
Huge, yes. He was so over here. Harley Race, who, as they say, he's the GOAT. Pedro Morales was a WWF champion, and of course Hulk Hogan were world champions who were on the card, which and kind of strange for Dory Funk Jr. to be in the WWF. And at the time we were just laughing at it because, you know, what the hell? What are you doing? But he was crawling over the Vince was crawling over the territories. He was getting these guys, and you know, Dory Funk was getting close to the end of his career. You know, his being actually active, and in the sheets, that was one of the things that was in the sheets at the time. Oh, they were making fun of these guys signing, but on the same note, you know what? You're not Dory Funk Jr. You don't have any money coming in. Should I go work New York and play a cartoon character and make $100,000 or whatever at the time? Who wouldn't, right? Who wouldn't?
I agree. You got to go where the money goes. They always say, hey, all that matters is the money in the mouths.
Yeah, so I got Dory Funk Jr. He was over 4 years, so that's 48 months as the National Wrestling Alliance champion. Harley Race, also multi-time NWA champion. He was approximately 61 months he held the championship belt. And I'm just writing this down so that we see where the main guy is. Pedro Morales was a big star in New York and the Northeast for WWF, for Vince Sr., and he held the championship belt for 32 months. Next, we have Steamboat, who held an NWA title for 3 months. Randy Savage held both the WCW and the WWF title, and that was for about 20 months altogether. But the main star of the show, Hogan, he had the WWF belt for 72 months, and he had the WCW belt for 38 months. So whether I like his lack of skill or whatever, that proves the point. He was putting asses in seats. That's all that matters. And 72 and 38 is 110 months. So that's close to 12 years that he held a major belt, more than anybody even remotely close.
Yeah, and we talked about earlier how he won the belt in 84. He did keep it until 88.
Yep.
Right? So, I mean, come on, man. And like, we're in 86. You said that he's the biggest star in the world. The sheets are all over him. I'm sure Meltzer's all over him. Meltzer probably made a ton of money off Hulk Hogan.
Certainly did.
Yeah. Well, the first match I have here, the Killer Bees defeated Jimmy Jack Funk and Haas Funk with Jimmy Hart.
Yeah,
what do you got there?
That's, hey, the Killer Bees won. I mean, I like the Killer Bees. I like Brunzell. He's a great athlete. Blair was pretty good. when you start, I know wrestling promoters have invented brothers or sisters or dads or whatever, sons forever. We just all, well, semi smart. We just thought Jimmy Jack was a joke, like stupid, and more stupid.
Really?
And not calling Dory Funk was, but like I said earlier, I mean, hey, the guy's at the end of his career, he's making mega money. Call me whatever you want. I don't care.
Yeah, and at that point too, like you said in the last segment there, Vince wanted control. So you got to think, if he controls the name, he controls the merchandise rights and all that too, right? So I'm sure he still does that today. He still tries to bring in guys from other promotions like New Japan or whatever and change their name. Drives me crazy because it's like you think you would make more money off the names that they already have
Exactly.
and that they're more familiar with, right?
But, and in Dory Funk's case, there was actually people in New York City, let's just say New York, the WWF epicenter,
Yeah.
never saw him wrestle. Didn't even know who he was. Who? What? You could They could have named him Zipperhead Funk. It wouldn't have made any difference, right?
Yeah. Again, that comes back to the no social media, no internet, right? It was the fan bulletins. It was fans communicating, right? People like Terry Dart, Terry Justice, you know what I mean? Like Dave Meltzer, John Arezzi, Bill Apter, like all these guys. It was them who got the information out to everybody. This one's kind of cool. I wouldn't mind have seen this. The Magnificent Morocco with Mr. Fuji against King Tonga, and they had a time limit draw.
It would have been probably a fantastic match. Both the guys could work. I like Morocco. I even liked him in the WWF. I've always liked him. I've not seen him that much, but it would be neat to go back and watch some of his older stuff too, because he was over, and to me he looked like a professional wrestler, right? Massive shoulders, a thick body type. He was pretty good. I liked him. I did. I liked King Tonga too.
Do you want to tell everybody who King Tonga is?
Haku, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
He worked in Montreal for a while for Gino Brito, and they did fantastic business up there with some of these guys. But the next match would have been just a waste of time. Ted Arcidi, who was just a power lifter guy trained by Stu Hart, supposedly, was just a musclehead, worse than a musclehead. And Tony Gurria, unfortunately, he was near the end of his career. Also, he was a career WWF guy, held the tag team belts a couple times with different partners. Click. Okay, bye-bye. See ya.
Really, eh? That bad? Yeah, a friend of the show, Davin Christensen, always tells me, Ted Arcini. I bet you with the new segment, What Are You Watching? He wants you to watch an Arcini match.
He's going to probably want me to watch Ted Arcidi versus Sika.
Buddy, I'm giving you Doink the Clown.
The
next match, Junkyard Dog defeated Adrian Adonis with Jimmy Hart.
Yeah, I liked Junkyard Dog when I used to watch the UWF. He was so talented, and he portrayed a great figure, whether he was a babyface or a heel. I really liked him then. Oh my God, when he got there, that stupid crawling across the ring headbutt was one of the worst moves ever. That was just so stupid.
Were you a fan of the Adrian Adonis character, or did you like him better in the AWA?
Always. No, I didn't care. I mean, yeah, sometimes a few times in a match, if they caught him at the wrong angle, man, he looked physically really bad, but he could work, and I liked him, and I liked him from first time I saw him to the last time I saw him.
I think I prefer him with Jesse Ventura.
Oh, like much better, yeah, but I he's great.
Dick Slater defeated Iron Mike Sharp.
Another one.
Really? Ric Flair talks big of Dick Slater.
Slater's pretty good. I liked him. He could work. Mike Sharp, unfortunately, was a great Canadian guy who never got his due. Yeah, well, he did get main events against Bob Backlund and stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, hey, what can you do? But not every match is going to be a main event match, right?
Nope.
6-man tag. Bobby Heenan, King Kong Bundy, and Big John Studd defeated the Machines. You want to talk about the Machines?
A fantastic gimmick. Everybody knew who they were, and they kept portraying that they didn't. But Mulligan was awesome. I always liked him. Bill's.
Wes has got fans in the room.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. We love it.
Masked superstar underneath the mask is a different character. Lou Albano was probably just there to cut himself up. Heenan, we already talked about. Bundy and Studd, they were good. I liked them, but they weren't my favorites. Bundy turned into a caricature of himself by not doing anything.
Yeah, true. Like, I mean, come on. Like, you headline WrestleMania 2, and now we're in August of the same year. And what are you doing? You're in a 6-man tag with Bobby Heenan, who's basically there to take the pin.
Yeah.
We got a snake pit match. Ricky Steamboat defeated Jake Roberts. Now, these two guys were so big in the Mid-Atlantic era when it came to Toronto, no?
They were.
Well, Ricky Steamboat more than Jake, I think.
Yeah. What have I written down here? I've written down Steamboat versus Savage. Did I make a mistake?
Maybe. Was it Steamboat and Savage?
No, it was a snake match against Steamboat and Roberts. It was Roberts, sorry.
Look at this guy. You're making me question myself, bro. You get. Wes is getting nervous because
I blew it. Still, as I've already said, Steamboat was one of my favorites. Steamboat could wrestle this computer and make it look good, as they say. Whatever the stipulations were, I'm not a big stipulation fan, but whatever they were, whatever, who cares?
But it's the entertainment era. It's the entertainment era.
Yeah, you had to do something.
You're right. It's the entertainment area. Yeah, that's how. Like, when people look back, you got to think it wasn't wrestling anymore. Vince wanted show business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Billy Jack Haynes defeated Hercules Hernandez.
Full Nelson match.
You seem so enthused.
I didn't like them, so these guys used full Nelsons as their finisher. That was it.
The full Nelson match. That's so funny.
Here's
a team that you like. The Fabulous Rougeaus defeated the Dream Team.
I've always been a fan of the Rougeaus. Great workers. I've watched Ray Rougeau right from when he was like a teenager. I really like the Rougeaus. I've always liked Jacques too. And Valentine and Beefcake. I love the team. Beefcake, whatever. He was there to make them look pretty. Valentine was the worker. Valentine's awesome. Just awesome.
Yeah, I love Greg Valentine. I don't like him in the team, the Dream Team. I like him alone. I like him in the NWA, the 80s against Piper and all that kind of stuff. That's the Greg Valentine I like, to be honest.
I do too, but yeah, this is better than stupid snake pit match or Billy Jack versus Hercules. My full Nelson's Billy Jones.
Come on, man. You got friggin' Jimmy Jack Funk and Haas Funk, and you're worried about Billy Jack Haynes and Hercules Hernandez?
I didn't write the time down. I bet it was short, but anyways.
Harley Race defeated Pedro Morales.
In 3 minutes and 23 seconds. What a shame for two stellar world champions to be basically rounding out the card with nothing.
Yeah, they're the washroom break.
Yep.
That's all it is. They're the washroom break.
3 minutes and 23 seconds. Like a TV match. TV squash.
Yeah, like a Divas match from the 90s.
Yeah.
Now we're in the main event. The big one. The big event.
Yep.
Hulk Hogan versus Paul Orndorff. What's interesting with this is we didn't do this with What Are You Watching segment, but we both watched this on YouTube.
Yeah, and at the time, looking at it in today's perspective, if you don't watch this match and take consideration of the perspective, forget it. because I watched it with my old eyes and I watched it with my new eyes, and there's a big difference between those two, Jesse. At the time, everyone was so crazy hyped up with Hulkamania. It was massive, right? And he could do no wrong and everything. And Orndorff was so over. And when I watched it with my eyes, my now eyes, I said to myself, you know what? This is what it's all about. It's about good versus evil, good winning, especially in a big show, because they knew they weren't coming back with something else. So
No.
the good guy had to win the main event, right?
Yeah, and he won by disqualification too.
Yeah.
You got to keep Paul Orndorff a little safe.
Yeah, and it was a little bit of a crap disqualification, but still, it was. I enjoyed it. It was good. I love seeing the crowd. I love seeing Exhibition Stadium, and it reminded me so much of what was going on back then. Which I have to admit, I moan and complain about it, but it was pretty good. It was pretty good. It was very exciting.
Looking back at it, do you think that the big event is the third biggest event to ever happen in Toronto, next to WrestleMania 6 and WrestleMania 18? Or do you think some of the new shows are gonna outsell that?
No comparison. It was definitely the third biggest, and if it, in some ways,
was the biggest until WrestleMania 3.
Some ways it was bigger because of it didn't have the star power, the months and months of publicity leading up to the WrestleMania. It didn't have all the things that Vince would have done to lead up to, like, some of the stuff for WrestleMania is probably a year in advance, like scripted right out to the eyeballs, right?
Oh, and definitely now.
This was, the matches were, but I don't think that they knew it was going to sell that many tickets. I don't think they knew what the atmosphere was going to be like, and it was really, really exciting, very exciting,
and a huge thing for Ontario wrestling history, which is why we covered it today.
One more thing I wanted to quickly go over was we are from Ontario. There was 3 Canadians on the card, which is kind of low usually for the WWF. Usually they have more, but it was Mike Sharp and the 2 Rougeaus. But surprisingly, and we're both in love with Dave McKegney, the Wildman. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys on this card that worked for the Wildman.
That's actually a pretty cool stat.
Which is, and we're going Adrian Adonis, unfortunately for the last tour, Mike Sharp, Bobby Heenan, Randy Savage, Blackjack Mulligan, Bill Eddy, Ray Rougeau, and Greg Valentine all worked for the Wildman at one time or another.
That's amazing, dude. When you really look at it and the facts and everything. The fallout of this event was that the next day, August 29th, 1986, they had the Sam Muchnick Memorial Tournament, and that had like Harley Race in it, Don Morocco, King Tonga, Junkyard Dog. It had everybody, man. And like we said, like after that, you got to look at a couple cool things I want to point out. Hulk Hogan, after this, we're in the middle of Hulkamania. He kept the belt until 1988, where he lost it to Andre the Giant, and he sold it to Ted DiBiase. So there's the end of Hulk Hogan's little reign. Correct?
Yep.
Here's an interesting fact. WrestleMania smashed this record, obviously, with their seats, but to like 93,000.
Yeah.
However, Paul Orndorff was not booked on WrestleMania 3.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
It's like they used him up and he was put on the B or the C town list.
I know. It's amazing to, like, he was involved in this huge, massive event that's still talked about to this day in his career, and he wasn't even booked on WrestleMania 3. I heard he was a sub, though, for Andre, just in case he wasn't ready to go at WrestleMania 3.
That's probably the case, yeah.
Probably. Other than that, the rest is history. It was really fun talking about our first subject.
That's great. It's so great to bring back these memories for me. I I have to admit, I loved talking about this today. I'm not the biggest fan of that time period, but it was so nice to watch some of the matches and be reminded of how big it really was at the time. And it was massively huge. And I give kudos to you for picking this subject because it was a fantastic subject.
Yeah, and I hope that fans and listeners or whatever you are of our show, like we consider this our show. So we're hoping that you enjoy what we bring to the table. We're always open to suggestions and topics, and if you want us to send in questions or anything like that, it's just so easy to get a hold of us. And what we need you to do is get a hold of us for our new segment, What Are You Watching?
What are you watching?
And next month we don't have any topics. We're going to surprise everybody.
It's a surprise.
So we're gonna wait for topics to be sent to us or videos to be sent to us, and we are going to talk about them at the beginning of that the next month's show.
Yep.
And the best way to get a hold of us again is through our Twitter. You can DM us on our Twitter with the link to the video at Wildmen Podcast. That's at WILDMEN Podcast. We're all over social media. We have our Facebook groups, Ontario Wrestling Clippings of the Past, the Wildman Tribute page. I'm on Instagram at Ontario Wildmen Jess. Also have my Facebook page, Wrestle with JCal. Anytime you guys want to get hold of us, send us videos, send us questions. We have, we're open. And if we can watch it, we'll do it for the segment.
And you're going to be out and about. Tell us about that, Jesse.
Yeah, I'm indie wrestling is back in Ontario. Ontario Independent Wrestling is back, and I know a lot of people are excited about that. I'm one of them. I have 2 shows booked now. I'm going to the Pro Wrestling Eclipse show as soon as tickets go on sale. I'm going to try to get those. And also Alpha One Wrestling is coming to Oshawa. And that's going to be August 28th or around there. I don't have the date on me, to be honest, right now. But I'll be at the next Pro Wrestling Eclipse show in Oshawa. That's happening in August. And I will be at the Alpha One Wrestling show in August. And that is also in Oshawa. So by all means, if you see me, come say hi. Come tell me what you think of the show. Don't be shy. I'm out there and about. So by all means, let's talk some wrestling history. Wes, you got something to announce too, actually, you sneaky little guy.
We're so excited. The Wildman Tribute page is going to be 6 years old in November, and we're going to be doing a contest, so we'll be announcing what that's all about probably in the next episode. I started on a lark, just a ha-ha, and we're at over 800 members now, and it's still growing. Anyone can check it out. Just ask to see the Wildmen, just like it says, WILDMEN, tribute page to Dave McKegney and all his stars who worked for him over the years. And his 6th anniversary coming up, so we're going to have a contest for that. And we're going to have giveaways, and I'm planning to, because I'll be in my house, so I'll be able to get through my stuff, and I'm planning to put together a great prize, or prizes. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, and that's, again, going back to our listeners, and we really want to engage everybody that's listening. We really support Ontario wrestling and its history, and we really appreciate everyone who gives us the time of their day to check us out. I hope you guys check us out next month, because next month is a huge show, promotion versus promotion. Wes, give us the rundown.
Oh, baby. It's just going to be 3 words. Dave versus Frank.
Yeah, I can't believe Maple Leaf Wrestling versus the Bearman.
It's going to be interesting. I'm hoping to pull up some quotes from the people who were there. There's not many left, or at least their what was going on in their mindset back and then. 50 years ago, Dave the Wildman Dave McKegney tried to go up against Frank Tunney in his hometown at a big arena. So it's going to be interesting. Facts, figures, rundowns of the shows, rundowns of the stars, and try to get inside the mind of the little guy trying to beat the massive big guy. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, and in October we're going to do Whipper Watson.
It's going to be the start of Whipper Watson year. will be doing Whipper Watson every month for the next year because he deserves it.
Yeah, and he's one of the biggest stars of all time in Ontario.
We won't be, but he's worthy of it for sure.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff on Whipper, we won't even be able to touch it probably in 2 episodes.
No, I agree.
It's going to be.
Until then, my friends.
Thank you very much, Jesse. You're doing a great job, and thank you all the listeners. And I can't wait to hear get some feedback from everybody. And thank you very much to the Dave Dynasty Podcast Network. And don't forget about the T-shirts.
That's right. We have T-shirts coming out. Again, check out our old episode 1 and episode 2 are available anywhere that Dave Dynasty Podcasting Network has its content. Again, we are on Twitter at Wildmen Podcast. We are on Facebook, Ontario Wrestling News Clippings of the Past, the Wildman Tribute page. I'm at Ontario Wildman Jess. He's Wes. We will see you guys next month. Promotion versus promotion. Frank versus Dave. Maple Leaf Wrestling versus the Bear Man. I can't wait.
Adios.